Hi, it's Dwyer. It is Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk about Kell Brook's challenge of longtime nemesis, Amir Khan. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me just say, eye injuries in boxing are the kind of things that people don't honestly discuss, right? You don't know the truth until years later. So Harry Greb had surgery, which killed him years ago. I'm talking about a great fighter. And it was only then that they found out that Harry Greb was blind in one eye. It is only after Smoking Joe Frazier retired that we're finding out that due to a boxing injury, he was blind in one eye. You have fighters like Layman Brewster, a guy who beat Vladimir Klitschko. Let's remember that. His eye was bad off. It was in the middle of a fight that his bad off eye went blind, right? Because understand, you're dealing with the retina, which can strip off the back of the eye, right? His eye was so bad that he lost his vision in the eye during a fight. You know, Larry Holmes, great fighter, once had a fight where he wore a contact lens in one eye during the fight because he was having problems with his vision. You have guys like Ishmael Valdez. He would fight fights, his eye would look terrible after the fight, and of course, the argument was, hey, my eye looks worse than it is. I'm okay to continue fighting. Folks, he lost vision in the eye, right? He no longer can see out of that eye. Just food for thought. So that brings us to two fights. Timothy Bradley, let me say the great Timothy Bradley. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Timothy Bradley is worried about Errol Spence's eye. We're not getting the full story, right? The stories are conflicting, aren't they? We know that Errol Spence got in a hellacious car crash. You remember that? He supposedly was okay after the car crash. Then, of course, it's when he is about to fight Manny Pacquiao. Power and hand speed, right? You don't want blurred vision against Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao is so fast, it's a blur anyway. You don't want to be unable to see Pacquiao's punches because even an older Pacquiao had some of the fastest hands in boxing. It's right before the Pacquiao fight that we find out that Errol Spence has eye problems. Not a scratched cornea, but either, depending on the press story you read, a torn retina or a detached retina, right? They're different. Right now, we know from history that fighters are warriors. They'll go out there with one eye. We know Joe Frazier wanted to fight the last round of the Thrilla in Manila. It's Eddie Futch, his corner, great trainer, who stopped him. Well, let me say this. I've watched Kell Brook closely, right? First, let me add, I expect Errol Spence to have a problem with Ugas. But let's talk about Kell Brook against Amir Khan. You know, we saw Kell Brook against Golovkin. Still, in my opinion, one of the hardest punchers in the sport. I don't believe Canelo ever took punishment on par from anyone else in his career that he took from Golovkin. Now, Kell Brook had a fractured eye socket after that fight. Just like we heard Antonio Margarito had a fractured eye socket. That's how they sell it. Right after the Manny Pacquiao fight. Right, by the way, that was the risk Errol Spence was going to take. Pacquiao already banged up a guy's eye. And Spence, with a banged up eye, was about to fight him. Well, let me just say this. You know, Kell Brook to me hasn't been the same since that Golovkin fight. Right? Understand, his eye blows up in that Golovkin fight. Then he's in against Errol Spence. Now, he came out, I predicted Spence would win that fight, but I was surprised in the early rounds by how much faster Kell Brook was, by how Kell Brook's legs allowed him to move away almost on demand. Kell Brook looked like he had that fight. Revisit it. Then, of course, he started having eye problems in the middle of the fight. Kell Brook, a warrior, ends up quitting in that fight. Right? The eye problems were too severe. We have forgotten that. After the fight, we heard that Kell Brook had eye problems. Well, I didn't like the Kell Brook fight against Terence Crawford. Crawford's a great fighter. But understand, when Crawford is switching his orientation, right? He starts that fight one way, then he switches after 2 rounds. You shouldn't be able to do that against a lightning fast fighter like Kell Brook. Kell Brook's calling card is his speed. How fast he puts punches together, also how fast he moves. Let's face it, he moves better than Amir Khan. Might not have the hand speed of Khan, understand. Great hand speed is a gift. Khan, no matter how much time he takes off between fights, is still blessed with some of the fastest hands in the sport. But Kell Brook is fast. What you notice, though, is that Terence Crawford, in that fight, was targeting Kell Brook's eyes. And you notice that Kell Brook, in my opinion at least, was fighting slower than usual. By the end of that fight, Crawford's looping punches into Kell Brook's eyes. Brook, to me, didn't seem the same. Well, of course, for this fight, Amir Khan is being trained by the best person possible in terms of having experience in exploiting Kell Brook's eye problems. And that's Terence Crawford's trainer, Bomac. It's even worse than that. Amir Khan is training and sparring with Terence Crawford. If you asked me who was the best possible trainer that Amir Khan could use to exploit this version of Kell Brook, I would say it's Crawford's trainer. If you ask me who's the best possible sparring partner Amir Khan could have, who could Amir Khan talk to about beating this version of Kell Brook, I would tell you Terence Crawford. I'm expecting Amir Khan to beat Kell Brook. I'll hedge the play with Brook by stoppage. Why? Because it's Amir Khan. Right? Whether it's Breeders Prescott, whether it's Danny Green, there have been Amir Khan fights where, let's just say, his jaw has been tested. Let's also say that as fast as Amir Khan's hands are, his neck is stiff, isn't it? His neck's not on a swivel. He can't do this. His neck is there to get hit. Also understand, these two guys have trained together. I'm talking about Amir Khan and Kell Brook. They've been in the ring together. Both guys claim, of course, that they had the upper hand. Kell Brook has a certain level of familiarity with Amir Khan, who hasn't changed his style for years. So he's going to know where to find Khan. But if a boxing match breaks out, I believe Khan's going to have the distinct advantage. Khan's had some fights against excellent opponents where his boxing skills have just taken over. Right? Let me also tell you the way an eye injury operates. You hit the eye, the troubled eye of the opponent, and the opponent freezes. Right? They're not the same. You start busting up or even swinging at the guy's troubled eye, and the guy's thrown off his game. He's turning away. He doesn't want to get hit in that troubled eye. Right? He's not seeing what's going on. In the Thriller in Manila, Ali busted up Frazier's other eye. So Frazier was only left with his bad eye, the one that was legally blind. The one that Frazier himself admitted he needed a doctor's help to pass the eye exam. Needed to qualify for fights, and that's in the 70s, when things weren't that rigorous. Let me tell you another guy, the Hawk, the great Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor had eye problems. In the end, Pryor had to pick certain states to get a boxing license. And let's just say he was a shell of himself. So, I believe this is an injury fight. I believe we don't know. And I have no proof of this except history with other fighters. Right? I don't believe we really know what's going on with Kell Brook's eye. All I know is that the Kell Brook who fought Terence Crawford, and understand, Prime Brook is faster than Crawford. Right? Crawford is that rare great fighter who's getting by on technique. Crawford's not a freak athlete. Crawford doesn't have the hand speed of, let's say, a young Mayweather or a prime Kell Brook. The Kell Brook who fought Terence Crawford should have at least had an advantage physically. He didn't. Didn't have the advantage. Because Crawford, who cut off the ring, understand, Crawford's a technician's technician. Without blessed physical gifts, somehow Terence Crawford, technique-wise, is able to cut off the ring. That's a tribute to him and his team. Right? Crawford was able to hunt down Kell Brook. Now, Amir Khan, who's been out of the ring for a while, but who has been hanging around great fighters. Right? If Amir Khan still has the hand speed, still has the power, still has the back foot, right? Look at him against Paulie Malignaggi. Right? Look at him against Devin Alexander. That Kell Brook should win, at least on the scorecards. The bet I like in a fight that's close odds-wise is base bet Amir Khan to win, hedged with Kell Brook by stoppage. That's how I see it, because I believe eye injuries are among the most serious a boxer could have, right? Another serious injury are tender hands. But an eye injury is among the most serious injuries a guy can have when he's fighting a guy who has power and hand speed. And Amir Khan has both. We can criticize Amir Khan. You need to understand, though, that Amir Khan has had a financially lucrative career. He's been paid handsomely for numerous fights. As of his last fight, he still had the hand speed. And he's still immensely talented. The other thing I've noticed about Khan is Khan firmly believes in himself, rightly or wrongly. He's a bit fearless. Right? I like Amir Khan in this fight. I'll hedge the play with Brook by KO. I do not see Kell Brook being able to beat Amir Khan on the scorecards. Right? Let me also say, too, that toward the end of their careers, fighters will, on their way out the door, scratch that last itch. Right? Kell Brook, I believe, has viewed Amir Khan as a rival for years. There was a time where Khan had the bigger name. And when they would show up together for interviews, Kell Brook would always demand that he have an opportunity to fight Amir Khan. This is the fight Kell Brook has always wanted. When you're a warrior, you can know that your vision is spotty in one eye, or that one eye just blows up more quickly than the rest of your body. You could know that you shouldn't be fighting. You might even know that it would be a mistake for you to fight one of these young lions, right? A Jaron Ennis, a Virgil Ortiz. But of course, pride takes over. You can't imagine retiring without beating your rival. You feel in your heart you're the better man. You do whatever is necessary to qualify for the fight. Of course, life is different once you start getting hit in that eye. Ishmael Valdez had a big-time rivalry going with Rafael Marquez. Right? Both of them excellent fighters, both of them warriors. He knew he had an eye problem during their fights. But yet he kept having rematches with Marquez, who kept targeting the eye. Right? Valdez, what got Valdez in the ring, that competitive spirit, that need to win, kept him fighting when he shouldn't have. I believe Kell Brook looks great. Kell Brook sounds great. We don't know the problems he's had with that eye. Right? Vision problems are the kind of thing where when they pop up, oh my goodness, you have problems. If they pop up during a fight, you have big problems. I believe Errol Spence and Kell Brook are risking it. I like Amir Khan. To win this fight, I'll hedge the play with Brook by stoppage. That's how I'm playing it. Let me hear from you. Tell us how you're playing it in the comment section of this video. If you have information that contradicts anything I've said, right? If you have, because usually for guys with eye problems, there's a lot of propaganda, right? People don't realize that Ali and Joe Frazier are actually very good friends back in the day. When Ali was having a problem getting a boxing license, by the way, he was being helped by Bob Arum in getting that license, right? You know who your friends are when the chips are down. When Ali was viewed as dodgy and he was trying to get a boxing license, Joe Frazier helped him, right? I'm sure Ali knew about Frazier's bad eye. I'm sure he did. They were friends. Lord knows they fought enough. Back in the 70s, people would have spies in other people's camps. But yet you never heard Ali publicly say Frazier was blind in one eye, because they knew that would stop them from fighting. Right? When a guy has eye problems, there's a big hush, folks. If you're a gambler, you should assume that you're not getting the truth. You have to ask yourself, is this guy's eye problem still bothering him? Just watch the film of Terrence Crawford against Kell Brook. I believe that film answers that question. I don't believe Kell Brook's 100%. I'm expecting Amir Khan to win the fight unless he gets caught with the haymaker. That's how I see it. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.